still remember the day everything changed. Not because something dramatic happened in front of me, but because something silent broke inside me. It began like any normal morning. At least, that's what I thought. The sky outside my window was pale and quiet, the kind of morning where the world looks calm, but your heart feels strangely heavy. I woke up with that same heaviness, a feeling I couldn't explain. My chest felt tight, my breath slow, like life was whispering that something was about to shift, and I wasn't ready for it. I brushed it off. I always brush things off. I trusted too easily, believed too deeply, and loved too blindly. If only I had listened to that feeling. I walked downstairs expecting the usual warmth, my mother humming in the kitchen, the smell of tea, my brother laughing at his own jokes, my father complaining about something small. But that morning, none of it was normal. My mother didn't greet me. She didn't even look at me. She stood near the stove with her arms folded tightly, her eyes fixed on a single point on the floor, like she was afraid to look anywhere else. My father was sitting at the table, staring into his tea like he hadn't slept all night. His shoulders were tense, his fingers tapping the cup again and again, his jaw stiff as if holding back words. My brother glanced at me once, just once, and immediately looked away, like the sight of me hurt him. I forced a smile. "Good morning." Only silence answered me. I sat down slowly, waiting for someone to talk, to explain, to laugh, anything. But the air around us was thick, heavy in a way I had never felt before. Every second felt like it was stretching too long, too quiet, too uncomfortable. "Don't be late today," my mother finally said, her voice flat and cold. It wasn't the words. It was the tone. That tone. I had never heard her speak like that to me. My father didn't say anything at all. He just muttered, "We'll talk later," without looking at me. I tried to act normal, pushing bread around my plate just so I wouldn't shake. My hands were trembling under the table.
And the worst part,
it felt like everyone
they
knew
didn't
a
even
secret
try to
except
hide
me.
it. When I finally left the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that their silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional, a warning, a signal, a cold wave before the storm. But I kept telling myself the same lie I always did. It's nothing, they love me, everything will be fine. I should have known better. The entire day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying every strange glance, every awkward pause, every forced smile. It felt like puzzle pieces were scattered everywhere. But the picture they formed was something I was too scared to see. When my shift ended, I walked home slower than usual. My steps were heavy, like my body already knew something terrible was waiting for me behind those walls. And I was right. The moment I pushed open the gate, something inside me froze. No noise, no chatter, no movement, just a suffocating silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty, the kind that feels planned. I stepped into the house, and the first thing I saw was the living room light turned on, but dim, like they didn't want to draw attention. 3 cups on the table, 3 chairs pulled out. One was unfamiliar, as if someone from outside had been sitting there. My heartbeat quickened. Then I heard whispers, low, hurried, sharp whispers coming from the other room. I walked closer, slowly, silently. And then I heard it clearly. My father's voice, my mother's voice, my brother's voice, and one voice I didn't recognize. Deep, calm, and confident. "We can't delay this any longer," the stranger said quietly. "If she finds out on her own, everything will fall apart." My breath caught in my throat. She. They were talking about she. About me. My father sighed. "But she trusts us. She won't suspect anything." The stranger replied coldly, "Trust is exactly why this will work." My hands began to shake. My mother whispered, almost in pain, "She will hate us when she learns the truth. Then make sure she never learns it." My vision blurred. My chest tightened. My legs went numb. It felt like the ground beneath me cracked open. My brother's voice trembling. "I can't look at her anymore. I feel sick." Sick? At me? His own sister? The stranger answered, "This is what must be done. You all agreed. You can't go back now." My heart sank into a cold, dark place I didn't know existed.
I stepped back to hide, but the wooden floor betrayed me. Creak. All 4 voices stopped. A moment of dead silence. Then my father's footsteps approached the doorway. I stood frozen. He stopped when he saw me, his eyes widening in shock, and something else, guilt. "You're home early," he said softly. My mother stood up too, her face pale. My brother stared at the floor. The stranger turned around slowly, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. No one answered. "What are you hiding from me?" I said louder, my voice cracking. My mother reached out a hand. "Please, not now." "Then when?" I shouted. "When you finish planning whatever you're doing behind my back?" The stranger stepped forward. "You should sit down. There are things." I cut him off. "I'm talking to my family, not to you." His eyes darkened. He didn't like that. My father swallowed hard. "It's complicated." "Then explain," I said, breath trembling. "Explain why you're whispering about me, why you're hiding things, why you look at me like I'm a problem." Still silence. Then I saw it. A black folder on the table, thick, sealed, and printed on it, in bold letters, my name. The air left my lungs. I took a step toward it, but the stranger grabbed my wrist, not harshly, just firmly enough to stop me. "That's not for you," he said calmly. I yanked my hand back. "It has my name on it, so yes, it is for me." No one spoke. No one moved. Their silence was more painful than 1,000 screams. And in that silence, I realized something horrible. They were afraid. Not for me, but of me. My father whispered something to my mother. My mother nodded with tears in her eyes. My brother shut his eyes tight, like he couldn't bear to see what came next.
I looked at the three people I loved more than anything, and all I could feel was cold. Cold confusion, cold shock, cold betrayal. I finally managed to whisper, "Tell me the truth." My mother finally opened her mouth. "Please, just trust us."
I felt something inside me snap. Trust? I whispered. You broke that the moment you chose secrets over me. That was the moment everything changed. Not the folder, not the stranger, not the whispers. It was the moment I realized I wasn't loved the way I loved them. I was not included. I was not valued. I was not protected. I was a threat in my own home. And in that single moment, something inside me woke up. The naive girl who trusted too much, she died that night. And someone new, someone stronger, sharper, colder, took her place. Because when your own family betrays you, you don't break, you transform. And that was the day I began to transform. If anyone had asked me a year ago to describe my life, I would have smiled and said one simple sentence: I am lucky. I have the perfect family. Yes, that's what I truly believed. I believed it so deeply that the idea of questioning them felt almost insulting. I trusted their every word. I trusted their every decision. I trusted the love I thought we shared. Looking back now, I realize something heartbreaking. The easiest people to fool are the ones who love you the most, and I loved them blindly. My childhood was filled with memories I used to replay whenever I felt lonely, memories that at the time felt warm, safe, and real. I remember running around the yard with my brother, laughing so loudly the neighbors would yell at us to keep it down. I remember my mother wiping my tears whenever I fell, telling me that I was stronger than any pain. And I remember my father lifting me up on his shoulders during festivals, telling me proudly that I was his little star. How could I ever imagine that such moments would one day turn into weapons against my own heart? Because the truth about love is this: when people show you warmth, you never expect their hands to turn cold. I grew up believing my family was unbreakable. We ate together every night. We celebrated every birthday, every small achievement, every Monday that felt too long. My mother would save the last piece of dessert for me. My father would stay up late, helping me with schoolwork. My brother would check my phone, threatening any boy who tried to talk to me. We looked like a perfect family from the outside, like one of those families you see on commercials. But what I didn't know back then was the truth every betrayed person eventually learns. Some people don't love you. They love the version of you that benefits them. Growing up, I always felt protected. Too protected, almost. My parents were strict about where I went, who I met, what time I came home. At the time, I thought it was love, their way of keeping me safe. It wasn't until later that I realized it was control. My brother acted like my best friend. He always checked in on me, always asked where I was, always pretended to be overprotective. And I adored him for it. I thought it was sweet. I didn't realize he wasn't protecting me. He was monitoring me. But back then, none of this looked suspicious. To me, everything was perfect. I went to school, studied hard, made my parents proud, came home before dark, spent weekends with family, and believed every moment was built on love. I didn't know that beneath that perfect image, cracks were forming. Cracks I was too innocent to see. There was a phase in my teenage years when I struggled with insecurity. I always felt not enough,
not enough to make new friends, not enough to stand up for myself, not enough to shine on my own. But my mother would hold my face in her hands and say, "You are enough for us. That's all that matters." My father would pat my head and say, "You have us. You don't need anyone else." At the time, those words made me feel safe. Now, they haunt me. Because love should make you grow, not make you dependent. But I believed every word, and that belief blinded me. When I turned 18, everything became even more perfect. My family threw a big celebration. My mother cried while hugging me. My father told me he was proud of the woman I was becoming. My brother promised he would always be by my side. I thought that night was the best night of my life. Little did I know, it was the beginning of a life built on carefully crafted illusions. Even as I entered adulthood, the closeness of our family never faded. Every Sunday, my father made breakfast. Every night, my mother checked on me before sleeping. My brother kept giving me advice, protecting me, guiding me, deciding for me.
I never once imagined that these same people, the ones who stood by me through storms, would one day be the storm themselves. I never questioned anything. Why would I? When you love someone, you don't look for lies. When you trust someone, you don't search for secrets. When you believe someone, you don't prepare for a betrayal. And that was my biggest mistake. I let them into every corner of my heart, every part of my life, every secret, every fear. Because to me, family was everything. But now, I understand something painful and powerful. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by intentions. And their intentions were never what I believed. I remember a small moment, one of those moments you ignore at the time, but later realize was a sign. I was 17. It was a rainy evening. We were all sitting in the living room. I had found an old letter addressed to my father, but when I walked into the room holding it, the entire atmosphere changed. My father stood up too fast. My mother's face turned pale. My brother snatched the letter from my hand before I could even read the name. I asked what was wrong. They said, "Nothing, just work stuff. Don't worry." I didn't push. I trusted them. I let it go. That was the first warning. Years later, that same letter resurfaced in the black folder that held the truth they had been hiding from me. Then there were the financial things. Whenever I asked about money, my father would say, "You don't need to worry about this." When I asked my mother why we suddenly had less savings, she would say, "Life gets harder as we grow older." My brother once told me, "Leave the serious things to us." I believed all of it. Because why would a family lie? Why would they hide things from the person they claim to love? I didn't know the answer then. Now I do. People only hide things from you when they know the truth will hurt you or expose them. My childhood, my teenage years, my early adulthood, all of it feels like a dream now. A dream built on smiles, touch-ups, careful lies, and controlled love. Back then, if someone had told me my family was pretending, I would have defended them with my life. Because that's how deeply I love them. But love can blind you in the most dangerous ways. It makes you see what isn't there. It makes you ignore what is. It makes you mistake comfort for trust, routines for loyalty,
and silence for peace. And that's why the truth hit me so hard. Because I wasn't just losing a family. I was losing the version of myself that believed I was safe in their hands. The perfect life I thought I had was never perfect. It was a story I kept telling myself to feel loved. A story they allowed me to believe. A story they encouraged me to hold on to. A story that hid the shadows behind their smiles. And as I look back now, I realized something crucial. I wasn't living a perfect life. I was living someone else's plan. A plan that would one day turn my world upside down. A plan that would break me, change me, and push me toward a path I never expected. The path of truth, the path of pain, the path of revenge. Because the perfect life I thought I had was just the calm before the storm. And the storm was already on its way. Because the truth is, betrayal never happens suddenly. It happens quietly, silently, slowly, one strange moment at a time. And I had ignored too many of them. After that first cold morning, the morning that didn't feel like my home anymore, things didn't go back to normal. In fact, they got worse. At first, it was subtle. My mother kept forgetting small things she used to care about so much. She stopped asking me how my day was. Her hugs became mechanical, like she was hugging a wall, not her daughter. When I spoke, she flinched at certain words, especially when I said anything about truth or work or plans. My father, he became distant in a way I'd never seen before. He avoided eye contact. He avoided conversations. He avoided me. He would enter a room, see me sitting there, and suddenly remember he had to make a call. Every call was behind closed doors. Every conversation ended the moment I approached him. And my brother, the one who used to tell me everything, became a stranger in his own house. He stopped joking with me, stopped sharing meals with me, stopped being comfortable around me. Whenever I asked him if something was wrong, he would smile, but it wasn't a real smile. It was a stretched, trembling smile that never reached his eyes. And that was the first time I saw it clearly. Fear. Not my fear. Theirs. But fear of what? I didn't know at the time, but the closer I looked, the more I realized they weren't acting strange because they were angry with me. They were acting strange because they were scared of me knowing something.
Something big. Something fragile. Something dangerous. One evening, I heard them whispering again. I walked down the hallway, silently, slowly, holding my breath, trying to hear their words. Their voices were low and shaky. My mother whispered, "We have to be careful. She's getting suspicious." My father replied, "Then keep her away from the documents." My brother added, "I told you she's not stupid. She will find out." The stranger's deep voice said, "Then we must move faster." My heart dropped. Faster for what? What were they planning? What were they hiding from me so desperately? Before I could move, something fell from my hand. My phone. The sound echoed like thunder in the silent hallway. Suddenly, everything went silent behind the door. No footsteps,
no breathing, just pure, complete stillness. Then the door opened and the stranger stood in front of me. His eyes were sharp, cold, calculating, yet calm in a way that made my skin crawl. "How long have you been standing here?" he asked. My throat went dry. I just came." A lie. A small lie. My first lie in that house. He didn't believe me. I saw it in the way his stare hardened slightly. He leaned forward just a little. "Curiosity is dangerous," he whispered. Those 4 words pierced deeper than any scream. Because they were not a warning. They were a threat. From that day on, nothing was the same. The house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a trap. A quiet trap built with love that was no longer real. The whispers continued at night. The closed doors multiplied. My father started locking drawers he had never locked before. My mother carried her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. My brother kept a key around his neck, a key he never took off even when he slept. And me? I walked around like a ghost in my own house, watching, listening, pretending I didn't notice anything. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. Every time my mother smiled at me, I saw guilt. Every time my father spoke to me, I heard hesitation. Every time my brother looked away, I sensed fear. They weren't the same people anymore. Or maybe they had always been this way, and I was only just now waking up. One afternoon, something happened that shook me even more. I came home early again, and I don't know whether it was destiny or bad luck, but the moment I entered the hallway, I heard my name. Not whispered, not quietly, but clearly. My father's voice said sharply, "If she finds the property files, all our work for the last 10 years will be ruined." I froze. Property files? 10 years? Ruined? What were they talking about? My mother replied angrily, "We should have told her from the start." "No," the stranger said firmly. "She must never know. If she does, she becomes a liability." A liability? I felt my knees weaken. A word that cold, used for me, by my own family. My mother's voice cracked, "But she's our daughter." The stranger paused for a moment, then said something I will never forget. "Daughters are emotional. This is business." My breath left my lungs. The world around me felt blurry. Business? I was nothing but a business obstacle? Just then, the door opened again. This time, my mother stood there. She looked at me with shock and pain in her eyes. But instead of running to me, instead of hugging me, instead of telling me the truth, she said the one sentence that shattered me completely. "You shouldn't be here." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Let me explain." Not, "Come inside." Just, "You shouldn't be here." And that was the moment I realized something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't stress. This wasn't temporary. This was a secret, a big one, a painful one, and a secret they would do anything to protect, even if it meant pushing me out, even if it meant hurting me, even if it meant betraying me. Over the next few days, I became more observant. I watched the way my mother's hands trembled while setting the table. I watched the way my father avoided questions completely. I watched the way my brother paced around at midnight, whispering into his phone. Sometimes I would catch them staring at me, not with love, not with anger, but with something that looked like regret. Regret that I existed. Regret that I might find the truth. Regret that their secrets were built on my ignorance. I began seeing things I had never noticed before. A safe in my father's office I never knew existed. Documents hidden in drawers that were always locked. Strange bank statements lying half hidden under old newspapers. My brother receiving envelopes from unknown people. My mother crying silently at night. And the stranger. He came every day, every single day, always dressed the same, always carrying his black bag, always walking into the room they kept me away from. He never smiled, he never greeted me, he only stared at me like he was calculating something about me. And every time our eyes met, I felt as if he knew something about my life that I didn't. Something that belonged to me. Something they were hiding. Something that could destroy everything. The biggest sign, the sign I couldn't ignore anymore, came late at night. I woke up thirsty and walked to the kitchen. On the way, I passed the living room and I heard crying. Soft, broken crying. It was my mother. She sat alone on the sofa, clutching the same black folder that had my name on it. Her hands were shaking so hard, the papers inside rustled loudly. I hid behind the wall and listened. She whispered to herself, why did it have to be her? Why my daughter? Tears slid down her face. And then she said the sentence that made my heart drop into darkness. If she finds out, we lose everything. Everything? Everything? What was everything? Our home? Our money? Our relationships? Our future?
What was she so afraid of me discovering? What truth was so powerful, so dangerous, so life-changing that they would rather betray me than tell me? Those weeks were torture. Every smile felt fake. Every conversation felt rehearsed. Every hug felt forced. Every silence felt dangerous. I was living in a house full of secrets, and I was the only one left in the dark. But the more they tried to hide, the more determined I became. And somewhere deep within me, a quiet voice whispered, find out the truth, no matter what. Because shadows don't appear unless there's something bright trying to hide behind them. And I was done being blind. I used to think that the worst pain in the world was losing someone you love. I was wrong. The worst pain is discovering that the people you love were never truly yours to begin with. Because betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the ones who hold the keys to your heart. The ones you never guarded yourself against. And the day I discovered the truth, I felt every part of me break. It happened on a Thursday evening, a day that started normal, but ended with my entire world collapsing. My family was gathered in the living room again, whispering urgently, their faces tense. The stranger in black was there too, sitting confidently like he owned the place. The black folder, the one with my name on it, was on the table again, sealed, thick, heavy. I stayed quiet in the hallway, just out of sight, hoping to catch even a piece of their conversation. The stranger's voice cut through the air. If she finds out before we finish the transfer, we're all finished. Transfer? What transfer? My heart started pounding so loudly I thought they would hear it. My father muttered, she's already suspicious. We should tell her something. No, the stranger replied sharply. You don't say a single word. She must remain in the dark until everything is signed and sealed. Signed and sealed. It felt like my stomach dropped. My mother's voice trembled.
"But she's our daughter." The stranger looked at her coldly. "She's an obstacle, not a daughter." My mother burst into tears, and I felt something inside me shatter. An obstacle, not a daughter? Those 5 words stabbed through my chest like ice. My father said nothing. My brother said nothing. No one defended me. They just sat there in silence. Silence is the loudest form of betrayal. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened, because deep down, some part of me still hoped I misunderstood. But then, everything became clear. The stranger said, the property, the accounts, the business shares, everything must be moved before she turns 22. After that, legally, she gets access. I felt my hand go numb. Property, accounts, business shares, access. My mind raced. Why would I get access? Why were they terrified of that? My father sighed. We shouldn't have hidden this from her. It wasn't fair. The stranger snapped. You had no choice. If she had known from the beginning, she would have asked questions. She would have demanded documents. She would have exposed all of you. Exposed? What exposed? What had they done? My mother whispered, We didn't mean to hurt her. The stranger answered coldly, Then don't let her find out. Remember what's at stake. At stake? There was something at stake. Something huge. Something involving me. My father rubbed his face with both hands. We used her name for everything. If this comes to light... My mother finished his sentence with a broken voice. We lose everything. I felt like my entire body froze. They used my name. For everything? I stumbled backward, gripping the wall so I wouldn't fall. My vision blurred, my breathing quickened. Then I heard the sentence that broke me completely. The stranger said, We've been using her identity for 10 years. If she finds out, you won't just lose your house, you could lose your freedom. It felt like thunder exploded in my chest. My identity. My identity. For 10 years. Used by my own family. Behind my back. Without permission. Without honesty. Without love. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal so deep that it tore through every memory I had of them. I covered my mouth with shaking hands to stop myself from crying out. But then, it got worse. Much worse. My brother spoke next. His voice, the same voice that once laughed with me, joked with me, shared secrets with me, now sounded heavy with guilt. He said, We should have never put her name on the documents. She trusted us. The stranger scoffed. That's exactly why you used her. Trust makes manipulation easier. I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down slowly until I was sitting on the cold floor. My father whispered, What if she finds the folder? The stranger replied without hesitation, She won't if you keep acting normal. Make her feel guilty. Make her feel close. Keep her busy. Keep her trusting you. My breath stopped. They were pretending. Pretending to love me. Pretending to care. Pretending to be stressed. Pretending to be busy. Every hug, every smile, every soft tone, all a performance. A trap. The stranger added, Remember, she's emotional. People like her break easily. Just keep her confused. Confused? Confused. That word spun in my head like a blade. My whole life suddenly made sense. My father keeping me away from documents, my mother avoiding my questions, my brother shutting himself away. the stranger monitoring every move, the sudden silence, the cold tone, the fear in their eyes. It wasn't love. It was strategy. They weren't protecting me. They were controlling me, so I wouldn't discover the truth. So I would remain soft, blind, oblivious, so they could keep using my identity, keep benefiting from my name, keep building their future on my shoulders. My entire life was a carefully crafted illusion, a script I didn't know I was acting in, a lie wrapped in the shape of a family. Just then, the stranger stood up. He said, "Tomorrow we finalize everything. After that, she'll be irrelevant." Irrelevant. That word tore me open. My mother whispered something, a pleading sound, but he shut her down. "Don't forget," he warned, "what we're doing must remain hidden. If she finds out, it will destroy all of you." My father whispered, "She won't find out." But he was wrong, because I had already heard everything. Every word, every lie, every betrayal. I wiped my tears, stood up slowly, and walked back to my room without making a sound. My legs felt weak. My heart felt shattered. My hands shook with anger, heartbreak, disbelief. But my mind was sharper than it ever had been, because in that moment, one truth became crystal clear. They betrayed me, but they also underestimated me. And the girl they thought would break easily, she was gone. Someone new stood in her place. Someone ready to uncover every layer of their lies. Someone ready to fight back. Someone ready to reclaim her name. And someone who would make sure they never forgot. You can betray love, but you cannot betray someone who has finally opened her eyes. People say revenge begins with anger, but mine began with silence. A deep, heavy silence that settled inside me the moment I heard everything. Their lies, their plans, their whispered fears, their betrayal. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. I simply sat on the floor of my room, staring at the wall, feeling something inside me shift, slowly, painfully, permanently. For the first time in my life, I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't their shield. I wasn't their tool. I was something else. Something they never prepared for. Someone they never expected me to become. Someone who sees the truth, and someone who refuses to be used. My mother asked if I wanted dinner. I said, "Not yet. I need to think." My brother walked past me, avoiding eye contact. His hands were shaking. Guilt was eating him alive. Everything in that house felt like a carefully constructed lie. But now, I wasn't trapped in it. I was studying it, watching every detail, every whisper, every glance. The stranger arrived shortly after. When he saw me sitting on the couch, looking straight at him, he froze for a moment. Then, he forced a smile. I didn't smile back. He watched me as he passed, eyes sharp, calculating, maybe even sensing something had changed. He wasn't wrong. Everything had changed. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I was planning. I was preparing. I was choosing myself over them. My revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about taking back what was mine, my name, my identity, my freedom, my life. And I knew exactly how to start. That night, I waited until they fell asleep. I sat in my bed, surrounded by the photocopies I'd collected, reading, understanding, connecting every line, every signature, every lie. Piece by piece, their entire plan unfolded in front of me. They weren't just hiding debt. They weren't just protecting themselves. They were preparing to erase me from everything. The moment I turned 22, I would legally gain full access to the assets they'd hidden in my name. To avoid that, they planned to transfer everything out, quietly, before my birthday. And once the transfer was complete, I would be left with nothing. Not a home, not an account, not a right, not a voice. They'd walk away clean. I'd walk away empty. Unless I stopped them first. And I could, because now I had proof. Now I had leverage. Now I knew more than they did. I wasn't just their daughter anymore. I was their biggest threat. As midnight approached, I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "This ends now." No more trusting blindly. No more waiting for answers. No more tears for people who didn't deserve them. I folded the copies, hid them safely, and stood in front of the mirror. For the first time in my life, I saw myself clearly. Not weak, not confused, not scared, but strong, sharp, awake, and angry in a way that didn't shake my voice. It steadied it. Because this wasn't just revenge. This was justice. This was reclaiming every piece of me they stole. This was the day I stopped living for them and finally chose myself. Every lie has a breaking point, and every secret, no matter how deeply buried, eventually claws its way to the surface. For weeks, I watched them pretend to smile, pretend to care, pretend to be a family. They didn't know I had already uncovered the truth. They didn't know I had collected every piece of evidence they hid. They didn't know that the quiet, obedient daughter they once used as a cover was now pulling the strings behind the scenes. And the day came. The day everything snapped. The day their precious masks finally fell. It began early in the morning. My father was in the living room with the stranger, signing papers with shaky hands. My mother stood beside them, her eyes swollen from crying. My brother paced nervously around the room. "This needs to be done today," the stranger said firmly. "She's been asking questions. She's too close." My father's voice trembled. "Just sign the rest." My mother whispered, "I feel sick. This is wrong." The stranger's tone sharpened. "It's too late for regret. Finish the transfer. Once everything is moved out of her name, she becomes irrelevant." Irrelevant. That word again. A word they kept using for me, their own daughter. The person they raised. The person they claimed to love. The person they lied to for 10 long years. But today, they were about to face the consequences. because they weren't the only ones preparing. I was preparing too. I took a quiet breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked into the living room. Every head turned toward me instantly. My father froze mid-signature. My mother's lips parted in shock. My brother went pale, and the stranger narrowed his eyes like he suddenly sensed danger. I stood in the doorway, calm, calmer than I had ever been. "Good morning," I said softly. No one responded. Silence hit the room like a wave. Then I stepped forward slowly and placed a thick envelope on the table. My father's voice cracked. What is that?" I didn't answer immediately. I looked at each of them, slowly, deliberately, letting my calm expression sink into their fear. Then I spoke. A collection. My voice was steady, stronger than ever. A collection of everything you tried to hide from me. My mother gasped, covering her mouth. My brother whispered, "No, no, 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 she knows." The stranger clenched his jaw, staring at me like I was a threat he failed to calculate. I continued. Property papers under my name, loan agreements signed using my identity, transactions you all made behind my back, bank accounts I never knew existed, companies registered illegally with my name on the documents. My father's face turned completely white. "And don't worry," I added softly, "I made copies of everything." The stranger took a step forward. "You have no idea what you're talking about." I turned to him, meeting his cold stare. "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I visited the records office, the banks, the registration authorities. I have everything." His eyes flickered, not with anger, but fear. Real fear. My mother stumbled back, tears filling her eyes. "Why did you do that? Why didn't you trust us?" I laughed quietly, painfully. "Trust you? You used my identity for 10 years. You lied to me every single day. You pretended to love me so I wouldn't ask questions. And now you expect trust?" My father broke down, whispering, "We didn't want to hurt you." I cut in sharply. "You already did." "But we were trying to protect you," he insisted. I stepped closer. "You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourselves." The stranger finally spoke, his voice cold, irritated, losing its calm edge. "Listen, you're young, emotional. You don't understand how the world works. These things are illegal," I said firmly. "And now I have enough proof to expose all of you." His jaw tightened. He looked nervous for the first time. "Good." My brother tried to reach for my arm. "Please, don't do anything stupid." I pulled away. "Stupid is signing illegal documents under your—"
He froze instantly. Then I added, "And this is live backed. If you touch me, everything gets uploaded." Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. The stranger stepped back slowly, rage and fear tangled in his eyes. My father whispered, "Please, let's talk." For the first time, yes, let's talk. What followed wasn't yelling. It wasn't chaos. It was silence so sharp, it cut deeper than any scream. My father confessed first, then my mother, then my brother. Piece by piece, the truth spread across the room like broken glass. They had debts they couldn't pay. They trusted the stranger for solutions. He suggested using my clean identity. They agreed. They hid everything from me. They used my name for years. And when things got worse, they planned to erase me from the paperwork before I found out. Not once did they stop. Not once did they think of how it would destroy me. Not once did they choose honesty over convenience. The stranger, cornered, finally dropped the last mask. He looked straight at me and said, "You should have stayed naive. It would have been easier for all of us." "Not for me," I answered. And that was the end. The moment his mask shattered. The moment their lies collapsed. The moment they realized the truth they feared the most. I wasn't the weak girl they manipulated. I was the storm they created. And now, I held all the power. My father fell to his knees. My mother begged through tears. My brother whispered apology after apology. But I didn't respond. Not with anger, not with forgiveness. Just cold clarity. "You didn't just betray me," I said quietly. "You betrayed the person who trusted you the most. And now, you face the consequences." The stranger tried to speak again, but I cut him off with one final sentence. "This house is no longer my prison. It's your judgment day." And with that, their world collapsed. Their masks finally fell. And they saw the one thing they never expected. The daughter they underestimated was now the woman who held their fate. When the truth finally explodes, there is always silence right after. A heavy, unfamiliar silence where even your breathing feels different. That silence filled the house the moment their masks fell. My father on his knees, my mother breaking down, my brother shaking with guilt, the stranger speechless for the first time. But inside me, for the first time in years, I felt something new, something rare, something strange. Freedom. Not the kind you feel when you leave school for vacation. Not the kind you feel when you finish a difficult task. This was something deeper, something spiritual. The kind of freedom that comes when you finally stop living for others and start living for yourself. After exposing everything, I stood there quietly, absorbing the moment. For years, I lived under their control. For years, I trusted blindly. For years, I carried the weight of a family built on fraud, lies, and manipulation. But now, that weight was gone. They couldn't lie anymore. They couldn't hide anymore. They couldn't use my identity, my innocence, or my love anymore. I was no longer the girl they manipulated. I was no longer the shield they hid behind. I was no longer the puppet they controlled. I was finally me. And that realization felt like breathing after drowning. My father spoke first, his voice shaking. What will you do now?" he asked, unable to meet my eyes. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted them to feel the weight of the silence they had forced me to live in. Then I finally replied, "I will do what I should have done years ago." My mother wiped her tears, panic rising in her voice. "Please, don't leave us." And now, he stood in front of me, not as a brother, but as someone who betrayed me just as deeply. "I forgive you," I said quietly. His eyes widened. "You do?" "Yes," I whispered. "But forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, and it's not the same as staying." He stepped aside slowly, tears streaming down his face, and I walked past him without turning back. My mother grabbed my hand as I reached the living room. Her grip was trembling. "You are our daughter," she cried. "We made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we still love you." "Love?" I whispered softly. She closed her eyes, ashamed. "Love doesn't hide 10 years of truth. Love doesn't use someone's name without their consent. Love doesn't break someone's identity to save itself." She collapsed into my father's arms, sobbing. My father finally spoke, voice heavy with guilt. "Whatever you decide, we deserve it." They did. They truly did. But revenge wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about hurting them. It wasn't about making them suffer. Revenge was about reclaiming myself, and I already had. I told my father, "Take responsibility. Fix what you broke. Face what you've done. Not for me, but for yourselves." Then I walked away, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with peace. The stranger followed me outside. He was desperate now, his calm demeanor shattered. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "You think the world will protect you. I know people. I can make things." I turned and looked straight in the eyes. "I'm not scared of you. Not anymore." He clenched his jaw. "You think you're stronger than us?" A slight smile touched my lips. "No. I'm stronger than the girl you thought I was." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me, but I didn't move. "You ruined everything," he whispered angrily. "No," I replied calmly. "I exposed everything." He held my gaze for a moment, then turned away, defeated. I walked off the porch, feeling lighter with every step. The house behind me wasn't my home anymore. It was just a place where a version of me once lived, a version built on lies and illusions. Now I was walking toward a life I chose, not one chosen for me. As I reached the main road, the sun was rising. A new day, a new beginning, a new freedom. I inhaled deeply, letting the morning air fill my lungs. It felt like the first real breath in years.
I didn't know exactly where I was going. I didn't have a perfect plan. I didn't have all the answers. But for the first time, that didn't scare me. Because the unknown didn't feel dangerous anymore. It felt open, possible, mine. I had resources, I had evidence, I had courage, I had clarity, and most importantly, I had myself. The version of me who wasn't controlled, the version of me who wasn't used, the version of me who wasn't blinded by fake love, the version of me who finally understood her worth. For so long, I lived inside a cage made of secrets. Today, I stepped out of it. And once you taste freedom, you never go back. As I walked away, I whispered to myself, "This is the beginning of the life I always deserved." And it was. Because that day, I didn't just walk away from my family's lies. I walked into the freedom I never had. People say betrayal changes you. They're wrong. Betrayal doesn't just change you, it recreates you. It tears apart the person you used to be, the trusting version, the innocent version, the soft version, and forces you to meet someone you never knew existed within you. Someone stronger, someone wiser, someone sharper, someone who understands the price of blind loyalty and the value of self-worth.
That is what betrayal taught me. When I walked away from my family, I thought the hardest part was over. I thought exposing the truth, confronting the lies, and choosing myself would be the end of the story. But endings aren't just about closing doors. They're about opening new ones. Doors you never dared to touch before. In the days that followed, I experienced something strange. Quiet. A quiet that wasn't heavy or suffocating. A quiet that wasn't filled with secrets or fear. It was soft, peaceful, mine. For the first time in my life, I heard my own thoughts clearly, without manipulation, without guilt, without someone else's voice trying to control mine. And that silence taught me something important. When you remove the people who dim your light, everything inside you starts to shine brighter. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I wasn't empty. I was finally free. One morning, as I sat by a window in my small rented room, watching sunlight spill across the floor, I realized something powerful. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the same way. Anger is loud. Pain is heavy. Betrayal is sharp. But healing is quiet. Healing happens slowly, in moments where you breathe without shaking, in moments where you smile without forcing it, in moments where you remember something painful and it doesn't break you anymore. I wasn't healed completely, not yet, but I was healing, and that was enough. In that time alone,
I learned a lesson I wish someone had taught me long ago. Trust is a gift, not an obligation.
You don't owe trust to people who break it. You don't owe loyalty to people who abuse it. You don't owe love to people who weaponize it. Family doesn't give anyone the right to hurt you. Family doesn't excuse betrayal. Family doesn't erase responsibility. I used to believe I had to forgive everything because they are family. But betrayal taught me this. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by intention. A stranger with good intentions is safer than blood with hidden motives. And distance from toxic people, it's not betrayal. It's survival. It's protection. It's self-respect. I also learned something deeper. You can survive things you thought would destroy you. The girl I used to be, the girl who trusted too easily, who loved too blindly, who feared being alone, she survived the worst kind of heartbreak. Not from an outsider, but from the very people she built her world around. She survived the shattering of illusions. She survived the collapse of everything she believed. She survived losing the home she thought was hers. And she still stood up, still breathed, still fought, still rebuilt. I didn't just survive betrayal. I transformed because of it. And here is something else betrayal taught me, the part that changed my life the most. You cannot control what others do, but you can control who you become because of it. I could have grown bitter, cold, hateful. I could have blamed myself for trusting. I could have shut my heart forever. I could have decided love was a weakness, but I didn't, because betrayal taught me one final, powerful truth. Being betrayed doesn't make you foolish. It makes the betrayer unworthy. My kindness wasn't a mistake. My trust wasn't a flaw. My love wasn't a weakness. Their actions were the problem, not my heart. And understanding that saved me. Sometimes people ask, do you ever regret loving them? No, I don't regret loving. I regret ignoring the pain that followed. Loving people is never wrong. What's wrong is refusing to love yourself in the process. Because when you lose yourself trying to save others, that is the real tragedy. But when you choose yourself, that is the real victory. And I chose myself. Fully, finally. That choice changed everything. Now when I look at my life, I don't see what I lost. I see what I gained. Freedom, clarity, strength, identity, self-worth, and most importantly, I gained myself. The version of me they tried so hard to erase. I started building a life on my own terms. Every step forward was a reminder that I was stronger than my past. Every small win was proof that I didn't need them to survive. Every peaceful morning was a gift I gave myself. I wasn't living in their shadow anymore. I was living in my own light. And if there is one message, one truth, one life lesson I want to leave behind after everything I went through, it's this. No matter who hurts you, no matter who betrays you, no matter who walks away, never lose yourself.
People will disappoint you, even the ones you love the most. But you, your strength, your truth, your identity, that belongs to you alone.
Don't let anyone take it. Don't let anyone use it. Don't let anyone decide your worth. Walk away from lies. Walk away from manipulation. Walk away from people who destroy your peace. Not because you are weak, but because you are finally strong enough to choose what's right. And the most powerful choice you will ever make is choosing you. So yes, betrayal changed me, but not into someone bitter. It changed me into someone wiser, someone braver, someone who sees the world with open eyes, someone who will never again apologize for protecting her heart, someone who will never again let love blind her to the truth, someone who learned that pain doesn't break you. It reveals the strength you didn't know you had. And that strength, that is my victory. That is my closure. That is my new beginning. Because the greatest thing betrayal taught me is this: losing them wasn't the end. Losing them was the beginning of finding myself.